Hard work can feel as good as beating your meat after this video, because I'm going to give you a step-by-step plan you can use to make hard work your default state. And it's not like just meditate or just, push through the work. No, no, I'm going to give you an actual step-by-step plan to enter transient hypofrontality. Okay, so you don't want to miss this. I open the door to my classes and I sit down on one of those benches and I open the book. It's a maths book. I'm in 10th grade now, and I'm writing one of those sums and I'm thinking, okay, this is trigonometry. I'm not understanding shit, even though like 10th grade trigonometry is very easy. I'm not understanding shit. So I'm writing, I'm thinking, okay, ye kaise karu, wo kaise karu. And then I've solved that sum, like, okay, shit, ho gaya. And the next sum. And then I'm stuck on one of the sums. And then suddenly I'm solving a lot of these sums and I'm like feeling super good. And then I feel this weirdness because I look at the time and I hear some voices, and I find that my classmates have come to class because it's time for the class. And I look at the watch and I'm like, oh shit, 2 hours have already passed by. It was at that time that I truly experienced the power of flow state, and I understood that if you can enter flow state, it is first of all one of the most blissful experiences of life. And secondly, it will make you so much more progress. So there are currently 3 steps you need to take to actually enter flow state on a regular basis. That means you can enter flow state on will. You wake up one day, you're like, okay, let's just enter flow state, and you do that. That's how I have broken these steps down. So step 1 is to understand dopamine, because if you don't understand how dopamine works, you don't know how to enter flow state, and you have probably the worst understanding of dopamine and the wrong understanding of dopamine, right? If you think dopamine is all about pleasure, you're wrong. Dopamine is not pleasure. It is not pleasure. It is the thing that drives you to pleasure. This is the common misconception people have. They're like, dopamine matlab pleasure hai. No, dopamine is not the pleasure you feel. It is the drive you feel to get to that pleasure. And due to desensitization of like daily things, we can't even enjoy like reading a book. You open up a book, you don't even enjoy that. You go out for a walk, you don't even enjoy that, because our brains have become so desensitized to low dopamine activities. All the time we want the new dopamine activities, like, oh, this, and we have huge spikes in the morning, and then we have so low drops during the day that we don't even feel like doing anything. Tell me if you relate to this. All right, you wake up, you have some sort of drive in the morning, but then after you like eat something or like you scroll or something, you feel in the afternoon and evening the lowest feelings ever. Like you don't even feel like doing anything. I think you can relate to this, right? It is because your dopamine spikes way too early in the morning, and then it dips way too less or way too down during the afternoon and evenings. And there is one task that will actually solve this problem, and this is the hardest task to do, honestly. If like 1% of the people watching this video actually do this task, they will notice the difference that they will feel. The task is boredom. That is, you just sit down in a room, you just don't do anything and let your thoughts flow. Now, the reason why it works is because it helps to it helps to desensitize our brain from high dopamine activities. It helps us to resensitize our brain to low dopamine activities. That means just sitting down on a day-to-day basis and doing nothing but just sitting and just staring outside your window will actually help you reverse the damage you've done to your brain. Because now what happens is you're doing this mundane, boring task, but if you do it consistently, you will find that you somehow just enjoy it now. So now, instead of this high dopamine activity, you actually like this low dopamine activity. Sitting down for half an hour, 1 hour per day and doing nothing will genuinely help you reset your brain. I would suggest as an actionable step to schedule a half an hour boredom in your day. So today, sit down in your room for half an hour without any devices and just see what happens with you. Step 2 is to understand transient hypofrontality or flow state. Now we're going to be covering how flow state works. What are the steps you need to take to actually enter flow state? There are 4 parts to flow state: struggle, release, flow, and recovery. These 4 steps are what is going to happen, and these 4 steps are the things that you're going to go through whenever you enter flow state. Every time you enter flow state, you will go through these 4 steps. Now, the struggle is where you have to do the work. The struggle is where like you have to sit down and do the work. Now, this is the part which is the hardest because you have to push through the mental struggle. You have to push through the mental blocks. You have to push through the internal resistance that you have. So now you are faced with a situation wherein, like, oh, I want to enter flow state, but now I have to push through this discomfort of actually doing the work. And this is where it will determine how well you enter flow state, because the struggle part is where you have to literally just push through this internal resistance. So scientifically, this is the part wherein your noradrenaline or cortisol levels spike. They are released more, and the right amount of stress will actually help you push through this, right? Most people think stress is bad, but in the right amount, stress is actually good because it will increase this noradrenaline and cortisol in your body, which will actually help you focus. So in turn, if you get a little bit stressed, you're able to focus better, and you can use these neuromodulators and hormones inside your own body to actually optimize and get through this struggle phase. And the way you can cause these chemicals to show up is to do a task which is 4% harder than usual. So, any sort of task you have to do, you just make sure that the task that you're going to go through to enter flow state is 4% tougher than the usual task. So, if you are studying or something and you're studying for 1 hour, and that is super good, it's easy, it's comfortable for you. So, 4% tougher would be like 1 hour or 40 minutes, 1 hour, 20 minutes, 1.5 hours. It's just a little bit harder. It's not really tough, or like 1 hour 15 minutes. Just doing 4% harder things will actually release more cortisol and noradrenaline in your own brain, which will in turn help you focus. The second part is to enter the release phase. Now, once you have gone through this cognitive struggle wherein like you have spent like some amount of time, half an hour, 1 hour on this specific hard thing that is troubling you so much, you then enter something called as the release phase, wherein you don't do that thing and you let your brain recover from this cognitive load. So you take a break. You don't do anything that spikes your dopamine, by the way. None of that shit. We're not touching your goddamn phone, okay? We're going to just sit down and be bored. So that ties in with the first step as well, being bored. So it's a win-win situation because now your brain has to recover from this stress and this load and this cognitive dissonance it has occurred, it has gone through. And then you also have to like be bored, so you might as well just sit and do nothing, right? So what this does is that it helps your brain recover and reduce the stress, reduce the cortisol in your body. This helps the body to remove the stress and get those feel good substances inside your body. Now we enter flow, the flow part. Now this is where you do the same task, but now you'll be able to enter flow. Because why? You have gone through the initial struggle, you have recovered from that struggle, and then you do it again, and this time you will enter flow and you will experience flow state. Now obviously there is a little bit of a caveat here, because this is something I have experienced. If I think that I'm going to enter flow, I don't enter flow, because then I'm thinking, right, I'm not focusing on the task, I'm just thinking, oh yeah, I'm going to enter flow. But that is not what we want to do. Yes, we want to consciously occur flows and enter flow state, but we don't want to think about it. So after the release part, you enter flow and you do the same task, and this time you just don't have any distractions, you don't think anything, you just absolutely laser like focus on this thing. That's all you do. And then you enter recovery. That is, you let your brain recover from the flow state part, because like what happens is, if you think that you can enter flow state on a continuous basis, like yeah, half an hour, 2 hours, then after 2 hours I'll enter another flow state of 2 hours. That's not going to happen, because your brain is essentially like it is a machine. Yeah, flow state is a state of efficiency. It's not a living state, it's a state of efficiency. So there is going to be times wherein after your efficiency rises and then it falls down, right? So at that point we want to let our brain recover from this task, recover from the cognitive load it has gone through, the process it has gone through, the pain it has gone through, to actually get the work done. Okay, now in this recovery phase, we want to do low dopamine activities. That is, activities which will not spike our dopamine way fast, because we're already experiencing a low. So we don't want to spike the dopamine and then experience an even lower thing, right? We don't want to do that. Step 3 is to optimize. Now, first of all, I just want to give a disclaimer. Okay, you must focus on all the 4 steps that you have gone through. You cannot just be like, okay, yeah, this sounds really bad, of like release and everything, I'll just enter flow state directly. That's not going to happen. You have to be focused, or you have to be obsessed with all 4 stages of flow state. That is the only way you can enter it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. There are 2 things that you can do. First of all is to remove flow blockers. Now you might have heard about this before, but I'll just quickly go over it if you haven't. Flow blockers are things which will block your ability to enter flow state. There are many things. The biggest ones are high dopamine activities and social media, or like any high dopamine activities, basically that high stress, lack of sleep, all of this shit is like flow blockers. It doesn't help you enter flow state really, really nicely. So the thing that I would do as an actionable advice, if you want to optimize your life for flow state, what you do is that you don't check your phone before you do the most important work. So this and this like ties in very, very good with the step 2 of this part, that is to optimize and do the high priority task the first thing that you do in the morning. So you wake up, you just brush, take a shit, and then you get to this work immediately. You don't check your phone, you don't do anything, because your brain is prone to get into flow state first thing in the morning. It has the ability to do that, so why don't we just use it? Okay, so do the highest priority task, the hardest task that you've been putting off, which has the largest amount of mental struggle, because then struggle, release, flow, recover, right? You remember that. So do the task that has so much stress and it's really, really hard. You wake up, you get to it immediately, and then you don't check your phone. You keep your phone outside your room, right? This will help you block off the flow blocker, that is the phone, and help you actually enter flow state better. You can talk to me one-on-one, first link in the description. Subscribe while you're at there. Don't sacrifice your future self for the pleasure today. Peace.